Okay, we are back. So as I stated before, we're still working on making that initial connection to our database. We're gonna keep working on it right now. Let me look at this. Oh, so these are just some potential problems. Nothing really wrong. The code will still compile if you have these yellow things right here. Click, 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 click. All it's telling me is that I haven't used this yet, which I haven't. We haven't thrown any exceptions yet, which we haven't. We haven't used this method yet, which we haven't. So, and we haven't used this connection URL. That's why it's a grayed out, because we haven't. So that's all that this stuff is telling us. But now we're going to start doing it. So we're going to create the try catch statement, right? So try catch means exactly what it says. Try this. If something goes wrong, catch whatever the error is, the exception is, and that's all it does. And you can then take that message and either print it out to the terminal, print it to a log file, whatever you need to do with it so that you can debug your application as you're coding and figure out what went wrong. And your try catch statements are typically going to be used when you're trying to connect to some outside source like an online database or some type of API, because it's the internet. Anything can go wrong, and if something goes wrong, you have to give the code in the computer a way to handle all of that data so that your application doesn't just go okay. That's frustrating. You run the application and then everything just stops and you don't know what happened. So that's why you have a try catch. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go try, open curly braces. I'm going to hit enter, catch. And then I'll put my curly braces here. I'm going to just give myself a little bit of room. Now, as you can see, we got all these red lines again, and the red line is here. And if I hover over it, it says a parameter is expected. So inside this catch, you have to put something inside there. So when something goes wrong, you're going to take that information and you're going to pass it to this exception object. And this object, we're going to call it E. You can call it anything. You can call it my exception. Right? You can call it, what the fuck went, sorry, WTF, right? You can call it anything you want, but most people just call it E. So if anything goes wrong, computer takes that information, passes it into this exception object with this variable named E that you can then do things with, right? But more often than not, you're going to print that error to either your terminal. Usually you're printing something to your terminal. So do that. I'm using the log thing you can use. Well, let me just do what I'm going to do. I'm going to go log, since I created it, .info. And then I'm going to put my message inside. So no connection established. I cannot spell. Error message. And then we're going to concatenate, because this is a string. That's what those quotes are. We're going to concatenate or add to that this E, right, variable, because that's where our exception or where our problem is going to be caught and is going to be passed to. The other thing you can do is E dot print stack trace. And so if something goes wrong, this print stack trace here is important, especially if you have like lots of different classes, you're referring to lots of different things. What it does is it allows you to kind of travel back through your code. so that you can see, well, what class caused the exception, and then you can go there and then you can figure out, you can read up on that method. If it's something that Java or Oracle created for you, or if it's your own class, you can just go back to that and just see, did you forget something? Just fix your issues. All it does is, like I said, it allows you to travel back through your code. That's the stack trace. Short answer. Sorry, I ramble. Anyway, we're going to go into our try statement, and we are going to have a connection. Okay, same thing. We have a connect method of a type connection. We're going to call this database. I'm going to call this connection I'm just going to call it connection. I don't know what else to call it. So we have a connection variable of in the type of object it is a connection object, and we're going to set this equal to what was it, driver manager dot get connection. And let's do that one more time so we can kind of look at that. As you can see, this is great about the intelligence of whatever IDE you're going to use. When I put that dot there, this is telling me this driver manager object has all of these static connections that you can get access to, right? And it's telling you, you can do get connection, and you can pass in, and you have to pass into it a string. Okay, so a string type. And it's trying to tell you also that it needs to be a URL. So even if it's a local server, you're going to have a URL that you're going to pass to it. So as you can see, if you look at our string, it looks like a URL. You can do a get driver method. I don't know what that does. You can do all of these methods. It's telling you register, deregister. I don't know what the rest of these methods do. I just know in order to get the connection, this is the one I want. So I'm going to click on that one. And then I'm going to pass into it the string that it wants. And the string that it wants is the connection URL. That's it. This does not have to be URL. Like, I know it said string URL, but I can call this anything. So let's rename this to connection string. Okay. Same thing. Back. Had to look at my code for a second. So once I get a connection established, if everything goes great and there are no errors here, I then want the computer to take the logger, and I want you to print some info, and I want you to print the message connection established. Okay, that's all I want. And then again, if this connection is successful, I want you to return this connection object to whoever is going to call it. So recall again, I have this connection method. Sometimes other people call this a function, but I have this connection method, and the type of method is a connection object, right? Anytime you give your method a type, you have to return something. So like I said, if everything is successful, I'm going to return a connection object, and the connection object is this thing right here. Okay. If it's unsuccessful, and we get some error, I'm going to return, it's going to try the connection, it's going to fail. It's not going to return this. It's going to go into the catch part of this statement. It's going to log all my information. It's going to print it to my terminal. And then after that, it's going to return this null object so that my system doesn't break and my program is still able to run without, crashing. Essentially, that's what's happening. So all I'm going to do is, like I told you, this public static void main method here is what you really need to run any program in Java. So in order to see anything, okay, I have to get everything started. And I have to call this connect method. Okay, that's all we did. All we did was create one method called connect. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say connect. And then I called that method, and then it's going to call it. It's going to take this string. It's going to try to connect if it can. It's going to log that it was established. It's going to return that connection because this is the connection object. If not, it's going to catch whatever the error is. It's going to print it to the terminal, and it's going to return a null object. Okay. Now, fingers crossed. This is always the fun part. And as you can see, even though everything's in red, it looks a little scary. It says, my log info says connection established. Now I'm going to change the password and I'm going to run it again. And let's see what happens. Okay, so let's look through this code. It's a lot. So as you can see, no connection was established. The error message that was written is that the login failed. So, this will tell you pretty quickly what occurred and how to fix it. So you really don't have to do a stack trace in this example, but I also printed out the stack trace just so you can see. When it called these objects, right, and it passed all this information to it, this is essentially what happened. It started here at code 10, right? We called our connect, and then it went down to code. See, this is our app. We got next app.connect. It went down to 17. And then it went to the driver manager class. Remember, we created the driver manager class. And then it went to this class, which is at the Microsoft, the JDBC dependency that we connected to. And as you can see, it's basically telling you, here's where it started, here's where everything broke. Okay. Same message at the end, login failed for admin user. Same message I printed out here. So I didn't need to do the stack trace, but this is why the stack trace is important, because it basically tells you, you can walk back through your code to see, okay, it started here, it went to here, it went to this line, and then it went to this class, and then from that class it went to this class, and you can just trace your error all the way back to see what happened. This is pretty long. Hopefully YouTube will let me upload it, and I will be back. We got our connection, everything's good. So we're going to move on to just calling some quick and easy little update methods and creating tables and all of that fun. So see you later.